What's up? How's it going, Pray?
How you doing? How you doing?
Good. So this is officially Birdlim's second podcast. It's my first time on here, and I have my first guest, Pray, who's awesome human, divine in nature and spirit, and has a lot to offer to the world. And I feel blessed to be here having a conversation about how we can connect more of the dots and figure out how we can thrive and flourish in this world.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. This is my first podcast ever. I've been told several times that I need to start my own or at least be a guest, but I'm just blessed to have had the invitation from you.
Cool. Sounds like we're on the same page.
Mm.
So Birdlim is all about bringing nature inside. Nature has a lot to give, and I feel like there's a relationship between plants and humans that is opening up. And I think the community's going to start adapting more of that. And Birdlim looks to translate those demands from the consumer into products, services, and ideas that we can implement in your home, your office, your lifestyle, your belief systems. And part of the podcast is to bring people like you on that can add a ton of value in those areas.
Yeah.
I know we met in the construction world where we're working with a lot of different building materials, and we're seeing the geometry evolve around these spaces. And I think you and I come from the same place. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we still doing this?
Why are we still building with sticks?
Yeah, it's just gotten to the point where, and why are we building square structures? Why are we, because you and I know the difference. We'll walk outside. It's like, do we take our break in the living room that we just built, or do we go outside next to the tree and take our break?
Right.
So I think you could add a lot to that, and I'd love to hear your take. Maybe we could start with how you feel about geometry, architecture.
Yeah. So I'll start off with a little bit about me in general. Recently, over the last years, so I have a degree in biochemistry. I went to school at University of Maryland for biochemistry and minored in physics. And that eventually moved into me getting into, so I did construction for, on and off for a long time throughout my teen years and into my early college years. And then coming out of college, I went into more of the scientific track. And at the same time of trying to understand which science track I was going down, because I could have gone down the medical path. I could have gone down the path of extractions. I could have gone down the path of alchemy, and we can get more into that later, but the path of creating tinctures and creating medicines and that whole side of things. But really what it came down to was recently, after so many years of developing into different skill levels and different, modalities of thought and modalities of spirit, I started recognizing the understandings of geometry through Dan Winter and a lot of Drunvalo Melchizedek's work. Started getting into architecture, started getting into why buildings were built the ways that they were in the monolithic periods in Egypt and in Mesopotamia, in India, in South America, and things of that nature. So started really understanding areas of how ratios and how numbers and numerology, along with geometrical structure and what types of materials that these buildings and these structures are created out of, what is actually going on and what was the purpose for that. Now, what I came to the conclusion of was, well, yes, there's many multifaceted ideologies around why they started constructing these buildings the way that they did, but ultimately it was to generate power, harness power, and nourish energies within the natural systems around them, within the earth itself, and within the human body. So yeah, anywhere we want to go from there. Did that bring up anything for you?
Yeah, no, this is awesome. So do you have a site that you've studied that you could refer to with more granular details on how you've maybe some of these ideas have been proven, or maybe there's something that they've written down where you could kind of
Right.
go down that rabbit hole a little bit? Like, okay, so their energy outside of you, their energies in the building, there's energies inside of you, how it connects.
Yeah.
Have there ever been studies done that have shown this energy?
Yeah. We can look at one of the biggest and most well-known structures in the world, the Giza pyramids, right? The pyramids at Giza were built with a specific ratio that it actually harnessed different angular magnetism from the sun, and then that angular magnetism from the sun in its conjunction with how it would harness magnetism from the earth. So it's been proven in many different physics classes, you can see this happening, that when you build a pyramid, even just a copper pyramid out of wire, and you place something within that, or you don't even have to place anything within that pyramid, but if you build that pyramid with a specific 23 degrees of an angular at angles at the base on a 4-sided pyramid, that angle ratio actually creates a implosion field, and that within the structure of the pyramid itself, and that you can measure that with a electrophotometer. And then there's also magnetic resonance that can be measured through pyramid structures. For example, there's another structure built by inspired by Edward Leedskalnin down in Florida. The guy that built the Coral Castle, if you've ever heard of that.
Mm-hmm, I have.
Yeah, so he would use, there's speculation on his work that where he would actually levitate the stones and place them wherever he needed to place them. But aside from that, I don't remember the name of the man that did this, but there was a guy that took a lot of Edward Leedskalnin's work in Florida, and he wanted to build himself a pyramid, an actual replica pyramid of the Djoser pyramid in Giza. And he made a fully congruent pyramid, and as soon as he placed the capstone that was encased in gold film, within an hour, because it's Florida, there's aquifers and there's underground water everywhere in Florida, and he had a stream or a swamp that was near his property. The entire property flooded after he built this, because one of the key components of specifically triangular and pyramidical structures is water is attracted to implosion. Whenever you have a field of implosion moving in a torus, water wants to move towards that area. And so whenever you have a pyramid structure that is creating an implosion field of its own, the water from under the ground wanted to move directly to that area, and it was pulled to that area because of the spin of the hydrogen structures of water actually maneuvers alongside of and wants nothing more than to be reflected in the energy around it and its environment. And so whenever water can sense that spindature, and specifically implosion spin, is being conducted, it wants to move into congruency with that. So
sounds like a way we could start creating universes.
It's one of the ways that this universe was created.
Yeah, like a triangular toroidal field that attracts life.
Mm-hmm. And we can get into the dimensionality of geometry too, but
it's almost like we live within this dimension is defined by triangles.
Third dimension is somewhat defined by triangles, but we have a multifaceted, multi-layered structuring of etheric geometry that actually creates this environment, this universe. We can save that conversation for
the next 3 podcasts.
The next 3 podcasts or 4, whatever it is. But Um, in general, yeah. So, long story short, this guy's house, this dude, he built his house into a pyramid, and the entire thing flooded, and so he had to put his whole thing up on piers and jack up his entire building, and since then he lives on top of a lake now. So there's just a little bit of an example of how geometry can affect the environment around you.
Wow, that's deep. Yeah, because I'm thinking more of like if I were to hand you a dead flower versus hand you a living flower, how that might change you chemically.
Mm-hmm.
Like how people say, oh, like if I receive a bouquet of flowers, I do get a chemical release of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It brings me joy. Versus if someone were to just bring me a vase of sticks,
yeah,
right? Like it's going to be a big difference energetically how I feel, and how that's going to now translate into my relationships with my environment, my relationships with other people, simply based on a different color and a different geometry of something I'm receiving or giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, on both ends of the spectrum, it's like you can go super granular with it, and you can start seeing how the geometry of life defines every aspect of reality, down to how water moves, all the way to the point of just the feeling, like what we call feeling. But we could probably connect those dots and bring it back to the fact that it's literally changing the energetic field because of the shape, the geometry of something that's alive, how that impacts the water that we're all connected to.
Yeah.
And creates that magnetism. Like people say I'm attracted to that.
Right.
You're attracted more to living flowers than you are to sticks, stems, right?
Or a flower that's been plucked out of the ground and no longer has its bioelectrical field in the same way.
Yeah, and how that geometry is literally causing attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that.
Yeah.
When I go outside, I feel like.
So there's a that real feeling, that palpable feeling of when you walk into a certain space. And so I'm Indian. I grew up in the Hindu community, and there, you go to temple and everything like that. And growing up, I never really appreciated going to temple, and appreciated the architecture and appreciated what was going on around me on multiple different levels. But now, as I've gotten older and started understanding more and more of these principles, and understanding and just becoming more sensitive to, energies around me and my environment and the people around me and the space around me, you can walk into one of those older Catholic cathedrals, or Presbyterian cathedral back in Notre Dame, for example, back in France, or any of these Hindu temples. You walk into this space and your hair stands on end, and the environment, the energy, the actual electrical field of the space is supercharged in such a way that you have no choice but to go into a place of your nervous system going into calm, your mind going into peace, and everything going quiet for a little bit. And then you leave that space, and then everything just starts to, come back, all your problems and whatever it is. But, there's a reason why people go into these places of religion, and they, especially when it comes to really rooted traditional religions that are rooted in their old geometries. They're rooted in their old teachings of parable, and they're rooted in their old teachings of allegory, and how you live your life through the teachings of these specific people, and not the fact that these things happened or didn't happen. But those things in general could also be looked at as geometry itself, and how they conducted and set up their foundations for going into these places of unfoldment and moving into I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I liked where you're going with that. I feel like it comes down to the resonance of, even when you say the word of someone that you appreciate as a teacher, the Lord, just saying the word, the Lord, or Yeshua, or Buddha, or all these amazing teachers that have walked on this planet, that resonance stays alive through thousands of years, multiple generations, through geometry, through the geometry of my voice, how sound waves are geometric, and how they travel through books and letters, and those letters hold resonance. They mean something.
Right.
And then how that translates into temples and places of worship and places of recognition of these ideas.
Right.
So you could, it sounds to me like if you had the right scientific equipment, which we probably will at some point, we can start seeing and understanding scientifically more about resonance and energy and God and life. You can...
Well, there's a lot of different instruments and equipment now that are started to come out within the last 8 years that we can measure unseen energies and magnetism and the magnetic lines of the earth and in specific areas where you're at. And so this brings me into my coming projects. So a few people out of Asheville, North Carolina, and I have gotten together, and we have been starting to create a company called Integrate. Integrate is a platform that is specifically geared towards alternative building, integrating new age technologies alongside of spiritual and physical technologies that can actually harness unseen energies or create unseen energies or navigate and maneuver unseen energies. Integrate specifically, well, our idea here is to, our idea was to get land and put buildings on it, get our community built up, put farms and make a school and put a retreat center and start generating.
Like build your own prototype.
Build our, the same type of wavelength that many people are on right now of like, let's segregate away from the system and start homesteading and start living for ourselves and things of that nature. Integrate, our idea here is to not only, we're going to get our own land, but help people that are already established with their own land to increase their infrastructure and help people that want to actually create their own communities to create their infrastructure using 3D printing, architectural 3D printing with concrete that can also be modified for hempcrete and different styles of concrete that can go into these structures that don't need to use steel being so when you create structures out of steel, for example, warehouses that are steel framed, that have corrugated steel sides and steel roof, you're literally creating a Faraday cage. You're stagnating energies. You're making a space in which there's just energetic poison. And we're going to get into probably a lot of that. You're going to hear that a lot, is the energetic poison. Energetic hygiene is a major point of attention that has kind of society has lost the grasp of that site of energetic hygiene.
It's kind of like a fish that somehow got off course of a clean river, and now they've gotten off course and they're in a swamp where the water's not moving, and they're having to deal with a lot of toxicity. Yep. I'm sure when I go fishing, I don't want to fish in the swamp because that fish I know is probably pretty toxic.
It's bottom dwelling. It's eating the things that are just keep on rising into the top and falling. And so and I think for some reason I see humanity remembering that we're fish that swim in rivers, in fresh flows of energy. I think we're remembering those times when buildings were built with that in consideration. Right.
We weren't in Faraday cages. We were like living and feeling the energy constantly. The walls weren't blocking that energy. The walls were holding energy.
Right.
And
the walls were nourishing your energetic field and actually exponentiating it and accelerating your ability to intake geomantic forces that at this point in time, most houses, most buildings, most businesses and whatever it is, they have no idea about these concepts. which is something that we're trying to bring to the forefront of the industries. Fundamentally, we're trying to change the industry from the ground up, and it's a big endeavor. We have many different projects that are alongside in tandem with Integrate, that are going to be focused in finance, focused in regenerative agriculture, focused in water purification, focused in alternative energy systems, which move into Tesla style 0-point systems or over unity generators, or geothermal systems, which can be that are available to us, that people won't get silenced if they start using those types of systems. Whereas these other systems that I'm referring to are systems that have been buried and mostly shoved under the rug for hundreds of, if not thousands of years, that have helped, like the Egypt, for example, the energetic systems of Egypt. They used the pyramids to actually power their cities. Same thing with the Aztecs, and same thing with a lot of these Hindu temples and the temple complexes in the old ancient cities in India and Mesopotamia and Pakistan. These temple complexes and these systems were actually calibrated to create a free energy system for their society, where they didn't need...
it wasn't hierarchy. They weren't like holding power, water, food over the heads of slaves so they could sit in a throne and say, I'm your leader, follow me.
Right. Much of that history was corrupted. Much of that history was co-opted. And, history is written by those that win the war.
Yeah. History is written by the killers. So yeah, that's, wow. So much there. And Integrate is connecting all those dots, saying, okay, the energy is going to change. We're going to change how you connect with the earth. And it sounds like you have some foresight on how that's going to change finance, like how people learn to trade and share and build community and connect, versus in this capitalistic society we live in, it's built on this hierarchy where you have to extract from your neighbor in order to gain.
Right.
And this is now sounds more like, let's all learn how to give to our neighbor so we can all gain.
Right. And so market economy has done it, in a capitalistic world, it makes sense when there are a few people that are holding the keys at the top. But then if you're actually trying to distribute that power down into delineations of sections of society that have never experienced such, then it goes down into actually having to break down those upper echelons of those systems and moving back into more of a barter style of system.
Well, because everyone's going to be wise.
Mm-hmm.
So when people I feel like the infrastructure that was created around us now has been designed in a way to keep people disconnected from the true energy source, life, and recognizing that and seeing that in all aspects, inside, outside.
Yeah.
Once we break that, it's like pulling the curtain on the Wizard of Oz and realizing, like, dude, just because you got a microphone doesn't mean you get to tell us all what to do.
Right.
So Integrate sounds like you're pulling the veil.
Yeah.
And you're saying, like, no, everyone can be the wizard.
Yeah. Essentially, our goal is to start building these types of structures for people all over the world and all over the country, and making sure that people are given the ability, and also not only given the ability, but have the means to be able to have and be provided for in that way, which is why we're making them a lot more cost efficient, and making sure that we're not, going over a certain, budget where lower class or middle class people, these classes are about to be eradicated and changed altogether within the next 5 to 10 years, I believe. But I also see that, the accessibility for these types of structures and the accessibility for people to be able to put this structure and not even have to be in a community. And, you have a plot of land on your street and you want to put it inside a regular neighborhood. I want to be able to have that of, city policy and state policy being able to come on board with what we're doing and see that this is actually something that is not only beneficial but exponentially necessary for humanity as a whole.
That's awesome. I love how you're doing that. You're making that consideration, because I've talked to a lot of people about this idea of changing the world and the community. And it's always like this 200 acres out in the middle of the forest where everybody is going to trade and share and live in these awesome geodesic domes. And I think that that's a model. And I also think that the approach you're taking, where you're saying, let's integrate. Let's start with what we have. Okay, you have rules to follow. We'll follow those rules and make it better.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to show you how to do what you're doing now, and for everyone to win more, for this to be viable, and showing it right in the middle of a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, because again, we can go 200 miles outside of Denver and go set up shop in the high desert down in the San Luis somewhere and put this community on 20 acres. And how is that accessible for people? Like people that have families, like you, for yourself, you have 3 children and a wife. You can't just up and immediately take your kids and wife and just go out into the desert. If you want to be able to actually
Well, we've thought about it. But
yeah, I mean,
the desert gets hot.
It does get hot. But it's more of the factor of does it make sense? And what makes sense for the most people?
And for me, community is everything. Connecting with community and holding that resonance locally. And I think it can be done here in these communities like Boulder and Denver, and we can grow and expand within the system and gradually transform it, like a plant growing up through the sidewalk, finding that crack, and then pretty soon it turns into the next forest.
Yep. And so there are many different systems that we're looking into incorporating as well. It's like, so one of the things that I started studying a long time ago, getting into the spiritual world and getting into the understandings of geometry and consciousness, and how to structure your life around these principles of geometry, principles of numerology, principles of the I Ching and things of that nature. One of these things that, the water, air, and light, these are principal elements that create our ability to sustain on this planet. So light, for example, light is something that most people don't even think about as far as the halogen lights that are in your house, or fluorescent bulbs that are going on in your house. Or you walk into a Walmart and suddenly you're starting to feel a headache. And these are principles that we're starting to address from a ground level of when you walk into your own space, how does it make you feel? When you walk into a square room with hard 90-degree corners, just like, we were talking about a Faraday cage, squares and the geometry of cubes stagnate energies. And they hold energies in spaces. And if you don't know how to clear, or if you don't clear those energies, you succumb to energetic depression, you succumb to physical depression, you succumb to a lot of times, medical diseases, and difficulties arising in different ways that you can't pinpoint, because you're like, I'm eating well, it's this, that, and the other. I don't smoke, I don't drink, blah, blah, blah. And yet I'm still, suffering all these headaches. I can't sleep, or whatever it is. So our whole idea here is these fundamental systems of light, water, and air. So air quality in your home, the light in your home, and the water that's in your home are some of the key 3 principles that we're looking at as far as how to create the homeostasis within yourself and the people that are living with you, and the energetic quality of it. So we're looking at systems that are, our regular plumbing that goes into your walls, they're taking hard 90-degree corners. Again, 90 degrees. 90 degrees, it's not a bad thing, but 90-degree angles essentially cause dissonance. And when you have water particles and hydrogen particles moving in hard 90-degree angles, they are no longer able to fluidly move with the hydrogen bonding in the same way that they would if they came through a spiral, or if they came through like the stream of a mountain, very fluid and very, like a roller coaster almost. And those actual movements and geometries that they take as they move, when we talk about hard water, the idea of hard water comes from the fact that these 90-degree angles and those hard turns that it's taking is actually creating an energetic break in the ability for hydrogen to absorb or carry nutrients properly. And so the micronutrients that are able to be carried fall away from the valence structures of the hydrogen, and they start to hold onto heavy metals and hold onto viscous chemicals and things of that nature that are like fertilizers and pesticides that go into our water streams and then get taken back up into our water supply through water treatment plants and things of that nature. So water is a big one. Light, as we were talking about, you walk into a Walmart and you start feeling a headache. It's because the lights that they're using are literally calibrated at such a specific frequency that it's not conducive for the human body. The human electrical field thrives in a light spectrum between 200 and 500 hertz. These halogen lights are moving in between 800 and 900 hertz and frying out your electrical field. They're literally creating holes in your aura. And those holes in your aura translate into physical stress and spiritual stress and energetic stress.
Wow. It sounds like a plant, because I have a lot of experience in horticulture, and I've noticed a huge change in a plant structure based on the type and amount of light it's getting during a daily cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely been able to see the impacts that different lights have, and different times of light, how that can change the biology of a plant. Mm-hmm. It can even get a plant to hermaphrodite.
Right.
Like if you're giving a plant light when the rest of the plant is receiving dark, if you were to just put a flashlight on a plant, mm-hmm. that plant is going to change, could potentially fundamentally impact
the DNA structure
down to like the sex of mm-hmm. it. Like it's now confused.
Yep. What do you think's happening?
Yeah, I mean,
in this world.
Yeah, we have a lot of confusion of sexes, don't we?
Yeah, we got a lot of that.
Maybe it's the lights, just like a plant.
The lights aren't helping, I'll say that much.
Yeah, like staying up until 2 a.m. playing video games.
The blue light coming from your screen is one really good way that your psyche is able to be manipulated. Again, that's another conversation for another video.
Yeah, no, but there is one thing though I'd love to dive into. Yeah. Where do you think we get this intelligence? Because when I look around, I recognize that I'm an animal mm-hmm. on planet Earth that requires certain elements to survive, just like a lot of other living beings on this planet. And yet I feel different. I feel like I'm a part of this tribe of people with technologies that seem to be pushing me against evolution mm-hmm. in a natural habitat. Where do you think this all came from?
So there's many different avenues we could take that.
Like, why do humans get to be in front of a screen and recording things and understand radio communication and drive vehicles that are...
Well, I would say that essentially these technologies and these forms of understanding and these levels and capacities of technology in general, they didn't originate with us. We have, specific precursor beings that were here before us that taught us a lot. You talk to pretty much any indigenous native of any culture, and they'll tell you, we didn't just stumble around eating mushrooms and then the mushrooms kind of just like gave us this experimental nature of like, maybe we should eat this thing and maybe we should pick up that thing and maybe we should rub these sticks together and try to make some heat so some fire gets started, or an electrical storm happened and that's the only way we can make fire right now, and we have to keep that fire going and blah blah blah. It's like, no, there were, I firmly am of the understanding, not even belief at this point, I know this, that we were engineered, and there were harbingers of our societies that engineered us, that taught people these essential forms of knowledge, these essential forms of, like, so for example, weaving, farming, and how to steward land, the understandings of baking bread, for example. How did people back in Neolithic times figure out bread? There's still fossilized bread, morsels of bread that people are finding in Dakar and different areas of these archaeological sites and stuff like that. How did they figure that out? Well, I you talk to these Aboriginals and you talk to indigenous elders, and the oral traditions that have been passed down for thousands of years talk about the star elders and beings that came down and showed us the way.
Showed us the way. And I'm always thinking, is that way still viable? Because I've lived in this matrix, this creation, with a lot of technologies, and I feel more drawn to rid that and to connect back more into my animal nature.
Mm-hmm.
I feel more alive, more at peace. Like, I always think, what if I got dropped off in the middle of nowhere with nothing? What would I do? And let's say that there was a woman with me and we were able to create a life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in, let's say, the Garden of Eden, and I might create some shelter. I might feel the elements of the wind, and I might know the elements of the earth, and start. First, I'd want to feed myself and my wife. So I would go find forage for food, try different things out. And then I think about the evolution of that life. If I were in Eden, living and wanting to procreate and survive, at what point would I decide?
If you're in Eden, what's the necessity to survive?
Well, so that's what I'm getting at. It's like, where did this idea come from that we're going to be better off by destroying Eden to have a better life? Because I believe that, like, why would I spend years studying chemistry or looking at microscopes or creating devices, understanding radio communication? None of that would be relevant to me. I wouldn't even see it as a better. I would actually want to spend the time with my loved ones, my children, my family, at the park or in nature. I would maybe build a park. I would maybe figure out which water had the best fish.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I'm trying to think how I would be provoked with all of my understanding of technology. And I don't know if it's truly a gift for humanity, all of this technology that we have.
Well, I mean, the way that I see it is technology. We're in the construction industry, and I've used this analogy with you before. A hammer is just a tool. You can smack somebody in the face with it, or you can put a nail in a wall. It's about how you use it, I see technology as just a tool, and these levels of technology that have been given to us are just giving us an external view of what types of realities are capable of being harnessed through a physical object, that are giving you a allegorical mirror of what's already the technology within our own biological selves. Now, how I see the progression and evolution of technology moving, and it's already happening, aside from the transhumanists' agendas and aside from cyborg brain chipping and all of that stuff, we're going to move away from that. But the integration of bioorganic technologies, the idea of cyborg it's a cybernetic organism, and I don't necessarily subscribe to the cybernetic side of things, because when you think about that area and you go down that rabbit hole, cybernetics essentially moves into planes of existence that are, like the internet. It's not actually, or AI, or what is that? AR, where you can go into, or VR rather, virtual reality systems, where you start going down the track of, dissociating from this world, and you start to live more in a world that is connected to not even etheric, it's an electrical grid, which this world is an electrical grid, but how many times do you need to fractalize and compartmentalize and Russian doll
Like
this
Tron,
experience?
like you want to get stuck in Tron, right?
Like,
do we want to do that?
Yeah. How far down the Russian doll rabbit hole do you want to go?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you believe that there's still the ability to use this technology in a way to advance in our own harmony with Earth.
Absolutely. And these are the technologies that Atlantis and Lemuria started out with. And I'll name drop those civilizations because, it's essentially the reliving of, we're back in the same cyclical time period of the fall of Atlantis and the fall of Lemuria and everything of that nature. And so we're getting that chance to move towards the precipice again in a way of like truly making the decision as a collective. Do we want to jump off the end of AI technology and jump off that deep end? Because that's literally the timelines that we're like riding right now, is the people that are going down the transhumanist agenda and that world, and the people of our ilk and our tribe that want to move into places of bioorganic technology and integrate systems of homeostatic understanding with Earth and our bodies, and the calibration of this human body computer with the Earth, and what kind of external systems that we can harness to be able to create a deeper resonance and a deeper relationship with the Earth itself and our fellow man.
Wow, this is powerful. I think we should definitely sum it up on that. So yeah, Prey and I are building the Elysium. And if you're attracted to that, please keep following us. We're going to talk more and get more in depth on our
we'll be back. I'll be back.
Advancements. Please come back.
Yeah,
this is like, I want more and more and more.
Yeah, we really didn't even touch or scratch the surface of what our plans are, and what integrate, and all of the different companies that we've built out, the trust system that we've built out. And we can get into all of that stuff too, of like, how to structure ourselves in the matrix to be able to play within the matrix while still keeping one foot out.
Let's do it. We're doing it. Well, thank you for joining, and hopefully soon we'll hear more.
Absolutely. And thank you guys.
Huge shout out to Let's Do Podcasts. They're super aligned. Thank you for having this space. This is like super fucking awesome, where we can share openly and connect with our community.
Yeah.
And Tribe Vitamins, thank you. You fuel me right now. Tribe Vitamins is an amazing supplement. I take it every day. Check this out. Bison tallow balm. Like bison, you want to connect with that deep DNA that you've had for thousands of years hidden. Well, now you can unlock it because you're dealing with bison. Like, these are native animals,
indigenous
native. This is the real stuff.
It's one of the only animals in America that didn't get brought here.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to be more real. So I'm going to take real stuff. And I think Tribe Vitamins is crushing it with their supplements, their heart, liver complex, the organs. I have bison testicles that I take, and it has changed me.
Yeah.
I feel like a real man again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 39 and I feel like 19 just by taking 5 capsules in the morning, and throughout the day, I'm calmer. I got my kill. You know what I mean? I think that's what it really triggers, is like we used to kill these animals and eat them. And that I got it out already.
Yeah.
So my body recognizes that, like, wow, you got a bison and you're eating its balls. Dude, you're good. You have nothing to prove today. Go to work, be a good dad. So yeah, I think that's a huge shout out. And 100 Sundays, every Sunday we get to in the park. Yovel's been with us a few times. It's been awesome. Push-ups, pull-ups. You got to join us.
Yeah.
You haven't yet.
Yeah. I'm
I've
down.
invited you.
Let's do it. I'll be.
I know you're doing Kung Fu.
Well, I'll be. Yes, Kung Fu is a big thing in my life right now. But, maybe next after I get back from my trip.
Cool. Yeah. See you at the park. I'll see you at work.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you here soon.
It was good. It was great being here. I'm really glad to and blessed to have been invited on this podcast for my first ever debut.
Me too. We got to share that.
Yeah.
Our first podcast together. So I'm stoked.